They say history is written by the victors, but what if that history was designed to make you forget? What if the greatest truths about who you are, where you come from, and why you're here have been hiding in plain sight, not in books, but in the gaps between them? Not erased, encoded. Look around. Pyramids, symbols, geometry carved into stone, untouched by time. Numbers that repeat, patterns that echo across continents, across cultures, across millennia. How did they know? Why do their maps align with the stars? Why do their myths echo the same story, told in different tongues, wearing different masks? And more importantly, why does modern history dismiss them as primitive? The ancients were not primitive. They were precise. They were tuned into something we've been taught to laugh at, to disregard, to fear. A current, a language, a structure behind reality itself. And over time, that current was buried, not by sand, but by systems, by education that teaches facts, not questions, by religions that demand belief, not experience, by institutions that reward memorization over knowing. This wasn't accidental, this was design. Because there is power in knowing where you come from. There is power in remembering how energy moves, how sound shapes matter, how thought creates form. There is power in knowing you are not a product of random biology, but a fragment of a larger intelligence, consciously encoded into the human template. And that kind of power is dangerous to systems that survive by making you forget. That's why this knowledge was forbidden, not because it was evil, but because it was liberating. Because once you remember who you are, you stop being controllable. So why was this knowledge forbidden? Not because it was false, but because it was too true, too empowering, too activating, too incompatible with a system that depends on your amnesia. You see, control doesn't require chains. It only requires forgetfulness. And nothing makes a soul easier to manage than disconnecting it from its origin. Imagine a world where you knew deeply, unquestionably, that your thoughts influence reality, that your body is a receiver and transmitter of frequency, that every sound, every symbol, every pattern you speak, wear, or build is shaping the field around you. Now imagine trying to sell fear to that version of you, to sell war, to sell limitation, to sell separation. You can't. That's why they buried it. They buried it beneath centuries of doctrine, layers of rewritten myth, and scientific paradigms that deny anything they can't measure. They burned the libraries. They called the seers insane. They turned gods into devils and turned symbols of inner mastery into warnings of evil. They taught you to fear the serpent without telling you it once represented the awakening of the spine. They turned the third eye into superstition when it was the seat of vision before your physical sight. They buried the emerald tablets in metaphor and told you to read only the surface. But knowledge that comes from source can't be erased. It hides in art. It hides in sound. It hides in architecture, in sacred geometry, in the spacing of ancient monuments. It hides in numbers that repeat across time. And sometimes, it hides inside you, in dreams that feel older than this life, in symbols that stir something ancient in your blood, in a strange nostalgia for places you've never been. Because your soul has seen this before, not on a screen, not in a book, but in the temples you once walked, in the stars you once mapped, in the truths you once carried. Before the forgetting. And now, it's returning, not as new information, but as old memory. Because the forbidden knowledge of the ancients was never lost. It was simply waiting for someone who could finally see through the illusion. And if you're still watching, you might be that someone. The ancients didn't build for beauty, they built for resonance. Temples weren't just places of worship. They were technologies, aligned to stars, calibrated to planetary frequencies, constructed with angles, shapes, and materials designed to amplify energy and consciousness. Pyramids were not tombs, they were engines, chambers of vibration, geometry, and sound. Their proportions match harmonic ratios still used in modern acoustics and wireless technology. Why? Because the ancients understood something we've forgotten. That form is frequency made visible. That geometry is not decoration. It's instruction. Circles, triangles, spirals. These are not symbols. They are codes. They shape how energy flows. They focus intention. They stabilize fields. And the cathedrals, the Gothic arches, the ancient ziggurats and mandalas carved in stone, they were all doing the same thing, transmitting something, receiving something, holding a charge in the land, in the air, in the minds of those who entered. Even sound was sacred. Chants, mantras, vowels sung in specific tones, not to please the gods, but to activate the human blueprint. Because your body, too, is architecture. Your spine is a column. Your chakras are chambers. Your breath is a carrier wave. And your consciousness is the current moving through it all. The ancients knew this, so they left you maps, not in language, but in structure, not in books, but in stone. But we stopped reading them. We turned them into museums, took selfies next to them, talked about the primitive cultures who built them, and never once asked, why do I feel something every time I stand here? Why does my body respond before my mind understands? Because the memory isn't just in the monuments, it's in you. And when you see these patterns again, when you feel that strange sense of déjà vu, it's not your imagination, it's recognition. Recognition of a truth that never left, only waited. If this is starting to feel familiar, it means you're waking up. Subscribe and turn on the bell. The remembering continues. The ancient knowledge wasn't just carved in stone, it was encoded in you. You are not separate from the sacred geometry. You are a fractal of it. You are walking resonance. Your breath is rhythm. Your heartbeat is a drum. Your DNA is a spiral of memory, folded and wrapped in vibrations you've barely begun to access. The ancients didn't study the cosmos to worship it. They studied it to mirror it. As above, so below. A law not of magic, but of reflection. They knew that if they aligned the temple to the stars and the human to the temple, the human would realign to the stars. It was never about religion. It was about resonance. And this is where modern science is starting to catch up. Neuroscience now speaks of brainwaves, coherence, heart-brain synchronization. Quantum physics whispers of fields, entanglement, and observer effect. Epigenetics shows us that belief rewires biology, but the ancients lived it. They built tools out of breath. They encoded healing and movement. They guided awareness with sound. They mapped energy with posture. They created initiation rituals not to control, but to activate, to bring you face to face with fear, to dissolve the false self, to align you back with the template you forgot you came with. And now, you're being initiated again. Not in a temple, not in robes, but in silence, in discomfort, in the question that won't go away. What else is there? Because you feel it. When you walk into certain spaces and your body responds. That isn't emotion, it's memory, it's vibration recognizing itself. This is the new awakening, not found in books, but in frequency. Not about adopting belief, but dissolving illusion. Not about escaping this world, but finally seeing it, clearly. Not with your eyes, but with the inner sense that never forgot. And when you begin to feel the pulse of that truth, you'll notice the symbols return. In dreams, in numbers, in strange alignments, not as superstition, but as signal. Because once your signal clears, the field responds, not with answers, but with echoes. And those echoes are calling you now. You may think this knowledge is rising again by accident, that it's part of a trend, that the rise of interest in ancient symbols, sacred geometry, vibration, and energy fields is just spiritual curiosity. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is remembrance. We're living in a moment where the field is shifting. The collective frequency is rising, and with it, old codes are reactivating, not in temples, in people. You don't have to study hieroglyphs to feel it. You don't need to decode Sanskrit to know it. You just have to notice what's waking up inside you. The books you're drawn to, the questions you can't stop asking, the dreams that feel older than your body, the pain that doesn't belong to this lifetime, but won't leave until it's seen. These aren't random. They're triggers, activations. Your soul signed up for this wave of awakening, not to watch from the sidelines, but to remember and to re-anchor something ancient into the modern world. That's why the codes are surfacing again. Not because they're returning, but because we are. You are not here to escape society. You are here to rebuild it. From a frequency the old world can't access. Not through noise, not through rebellion, through vibration, through presence, through the quiet power of someone who remembers that they are not their job, not their history, not even their thoughts, but the one behind them. And that kind of awareness, conscious, grounded, aligned, is contagious. It spreads silently. It rewires fields. It shifts timelines. Because every time someone remembers, it gets easier for the next person to remember too. And maybe that's why you're here now. not to absorb more knowledge, but to feel it vibrate against the parts of you that already know, because you don't need to become anything new. You just need to stop pretending you forgot. You were never meant to just learn the ancient knowledge. You were meant to carry it, not in your hands, in your frequency, because real wisdom doesn't pass through words, it passes through presence. The temples may be ruins, the texts may be scattered, the symbols may be forgotten, but what they pointed to still lives, in the stillness behind your thoughts, in the resonance beneath your voice, in the awareness watching all of this unfold. You don't need to memorize the emerald tablets. You are the tablet. You don't need to search for the Akashic records. You are the record. Everything you need to know is already within you, coded in your nervous system, whispering through your breath, pulsing through your heart. This is why the forbidden knowledge wasn't destroyed. It was decentralized, scattered, seeded into architecture, art, sound, symbol, star, silence, and most importantly, into souls, into you. And now it's waking up again. Because this planet doesn't need more information, it needs embodied remembrance. You are not here to study the fire. You are here to become it, to burn away the illusions, to light paths for others, to restore balance not by force, but by frequency, not by shouting louder, but by vibrating truer. Because the true sacred texts are not on shelves. They walk, they breathe, they listen deeply before speaking. They carry no flag, wear no title, and seek no spotlight. They are often unseen, but their presence shifts everything. And maybe that's who you are. Not the seeker of ancient knowledge, but the echo of it, the continuation of it, the activation point for it, here and now. So the next time you see a symbol that stirs something in you, don't just admire it, feel it. The next time you hear a chant, a sound, a number, don't analyze it. Let it vibrate you, because you are not reading history, you are becoming it. And if you ever forget again, look inward, not for answers, but for resonance, because what was once forbidden is now unfolding in you.